All right, ready to dive into some fascinating stuff today?
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at AI doctors
AI doctors.
and online medical consultations. You know,
Yeah.
that whole idea of instead of like dragging yourself to the doctor's office,
Right.
you just chat with an AI about what's going on,
Yeah, exactly.
like in Star Trek.
Haha, exactly.
Yeah,
It's closer than you might think.
it really is. And it's actually even more interesting than just replacing a doctor with a chatbot.
Oh,
We're talking about these AI systems that can really change the whole healthcare experience.
okay.
And a big part of that is
Yeah.
starting with how they ask questions.
Oh, interesting.
And that's what this paper, exploring the inquiry-diagnosis relationship with advanced patient simulators, is all about.
See, that title really grabbed my attention
Yeah.
because, it's that inquiry stage of a medical consultation that we kind of take for granted.
Yeah.
Like the doctor just,
They ask you a bunch of questions. They're just asking questions to figure out what's going on.
Right.
And that's like a make-or-break moment for these AI doctors.
He really is.
Yeah.
Think about it, like a detective, right? You wouldn't want a detective that's only focused on one piece of evidence.
Right.
They got to gather those clues. They have to
Mhm.
connect the dots, see the bigger picture. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what this research is getting at, how the type and quality of questions an AI doctor asks
Yeah.
really affects how accurate that diagnosis can be.
So it's not just about like having a super smart AI that can just,
Yeah.
crunch data and spit out a diagnosis.
Right.
It's got to know what questions to ask in the first place.
Exactly. It's all about that inquiry.
Yeah.
The researchers used something called Liebig's law to kind of illustrate this.
Liebig's law. Now, I know that from gardening,
So you
right?
got it. Liebig's law of the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So it says that a plant's growth is limited by the scarcest resource.
Right.
Even if you've got tons of other resources, it's that one missing thing.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
Yeah.
But how does gardening relate to AI doctors?
Okay, so think about baking a cake.
Baking a cake.
Yeah, you can have the best sugar, the most amazing chocolate, the fluffiest eggs,
Yeah.
but if you forget the flour,
Whoa.
disaster,
Yeah.
it's just not going to work.
Right.
It's the same with these AI-driven consultations. The quality of both the inquiry and the diagnosis matters.
Mm-hmm.
A weak link in either one
Yeah.
can completely mess up the whole process.
So even if the AI has, really awesome diagnostic algorithms,
Yeah,
if it asks the wrong questions at the beginning,
right.
the diagnosis could be totally off.
Exactly.
Like it's like having a state-of-the-art GPS, but you put in the wrong destination.
Yeah, you're going to end up lost
Exactly.
no matter how fancy your GPS is.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
And that's where this new patient simulator comes in.
Okay.
They created this thing that is way more realistic than anything we've seen before.
Oh, tell me more about this simulator.
Yeah, so instead of being a basic chat bot
Okay.
with pre-programmed responses,
Yeah.
this thing was trained on real doctor-patient dialogue.
Oh, wow.
So it acts like an actual person
Mm-hmm.
expressing concerns, asking the AI doctor questions back,
Interesting.
and even like getting impatient
Oh, really?
if the questions are, taking too long.
Wow, they really
Like-
seem irrelevant.
They made it tough.
Yeah.
But I can see how that realism would be so important for testing these AI doctors.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's one thing to diagnose like a textbook case,
Right.
but in the real world,
Yeah.
patients aren't always so straightforward.
They're complicated. They're
Yeah.
not going to give you all the information right away.
Right.
And the simulator throws in those curveballs that
Right.
you would expect from a real patient,
Hmm.
which forces that AI doctor to really think critically
Yeah.
and show its skills.
So how do they actually use this simulator to test the AI doctors?
So they designed this experiment where these different AI doctor models had to interview the patient simulator
Oh,
for a set number of rounds.
like a limited number of questions.
Exactly, yeah. They've got a limited number of questions they can ask before they have to make a diagnosis.
And then to really test that Liebig's law thing,
Yes,
they didn't stop there, right?
exactly.
So what else did they do?
They then took those inquiries
Okay.
that the interviewing AI doctors had gathered,
Yeah.
and they gave them to different AI doctor models.
Ah.
So they could see if a really strong diagnostic AI
Yeah.
could make up for a poor inquiry, or if a weak diagnostic AI could still do well
Yeah.
with a great set of information.
That's fascinating.
It is, yeah.
It's like giving some detectives a messy crime scene
yeah.
and others a perfectly organized file
Right.
and seeing who can solve the mystery.
Exact.
Okay, so what happened?
So They found that certain AI models were just really good at conducting these inquiries,
Oh,
no
interesting.
matter what model was used for the diagnosis.
So they were like the master detectives
They were,
who
yeah.
could just gather all the right clues,
Yeah,
even if they weren't the ones actually making the arrest.
exactly.
Okay, so who were the standout interviewers?
So one that really stood out was GPT-4 Mini.
GBT4 emit.
Yeah, it consistently had these high-quality inquiries
Okay.
that led to accurate diagnoses,
Hmm.
even when that information was given to, less strong models.
So even if it wasn't the best at actually making this diagnosis,
Right.
it was a pro at setting the stage for success.
Yeah, like handing over a perfectly organized case file to the
Exactly.
prosecutor.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now, there was another model, right?
There was Claude.
And Claude struggled.
Yeah, Claude struggled with the inquiry part.
So even with all these advances in AI,
Yeah,
it sounds like asking the right questions is still super important.
it is, yeah.
But how do we even define what the right questions are in a medical setting?
Well, the researchers got even more specific.
Yeah.
They broke down the inquiry process into 4 key categories.
Oh, this is getting good.
It is?
Okay, tell me more about these categories.
Yeah, and how these AI models approached them.
Yeah,
Because it really revealed a lot about their interviewing styles.
I'm hooked.
Yeah, and their effectiveness.
But first, a quick break,
All right.
and then we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of AI inquiry.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we know that asking the right questions is really important for these AI doctors.
Yeah, just like it is for, human doctors.
Exactly.
It's a core skill.
But what are those right questions?
Right.
And how did these AI models do?
Well, like I mentioned, the researchers broke it down into 4 types of medical inquiry.
Okay.
And it was really fascinating to see how these different AIs handled them.
Okay, so break it down for me. What are the 4 types?
Right, so first you've got chief complaint inquiry, which is basically just figuring out why the patient is there.
Got it.
What's their main concern?
Like the starting point of the investigation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, what's next?
Then you've got specification of known symptoms.
Okay.
This is where the AI digs a little deeper into the symptoms they've already mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when did they start? How bad are they? What makes them better or worse?
So it's like gathering those initial pieces of evidence,
Yeah,
examining them closely.
exactly.
Okay, I'm following.
All right. Then there's inquiry about accompanying symptoms.
Okay.
So this is where the AI goes beyond what the patient initially said
Mm-hmm.
and starts asking about other potential symptoms.
Oh, so they're trying to
Yeah.
rule out other possibilities.
Exactly. It's about differential diagnosis,
I see.
narrowing down the possibility.
Like expanding the search, right?
Yeah, looking for connections that might not be obvious at first.
Interesting.
And then finally, we have gathering family or medical history. This is where it gets really interesting
Oh.
because the AI starts looking into things like hereditary factors or past medical experiences that could be relevant.
So like digging into their background.
Yeah, looking for those hidden clues.
I like it.
And as you might imagine, these AI models approach these 4 types in very different ways.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, it was really quite revealing.
So did any of them favor certain types of questions over others?
Definitely. Remember Claude?
The one that struggled with inquiry.
Yeah, well, Claude tended to get really fixated on specification of known symptoms.
Oh, interesting.
Like, it would just keep asking about tiny little details.
It was missing the forest for the trees.
Exactly.
Okay.
And while details are important,
Yeah.
focusing too much on just one type meant it missed opportunities to explore other areas.
Like family history or accompanying symptoms,
Exactly.
which could have led to a better diagnosis.
Right.
Okay, so what about the other models?
Well, GPT-4 Mini, which did really well overall, it took a much more balanced approach.
Okay.
It would definitely delve into the specifics,
Yeah.
but it also branched out more.
And I remember that it focused a lot on family history.
It did.
And that turned out to be a good thing, right?
It did, yeah. It would often start asking those questions much earlier than the other models.
Interesting.
Like it was thinking several steps ahead.
Like a chess game.
Exactly.
Trying to anticipate what information it might need.
Yeah, and the results really showed that
Right.
that focus on family history was strongly correlated with its accurate diagnoses.
Wow. So it sounds like finding the right balance between those 4 types of inquiry is crucial.
It really is, yeah.
Now, did the number of questions they could ask make a difference?
That's a great question.
Like, if they had more chances to ask, were they more accurate?
So generally, yes, more rounds did lead to better diagnoses across most models.
Makes sense.
Yeah, more information, better chances of figuring it out.
But what about Claude?
Yes, Claude.
Did more questions help it?
Not really, no.
Oh.
It just kept getting stuck in that specification of known symptoms loop.
Even with more time.
Yeah, even with more rounds, it couldn't break
It was
free.
trapped in its own little maze.
Exactly.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it shows that it's not just about asking more.
Right.
It's about asking the right ones.
What are the others?
Well, models like GPT-4o and GPT-4o Mini,
Okay.
they use those extra rounds much more effectively.
How so?
They would branch out, explore different categories, really get a fuller picture.
Like they knew which puzzle pieces were missing.
Yeah, and use those extra questions to fill in the gaps.
That's really interesting.
It is.
So really highlights the importance of strategy and adaptability.
Absolutely.
It's like they need some sort of medical intuition.
Yeah, like a human doctor would develop over years of experience.
Like exactly.
And while we're still early in developing these AI doctors, this research gives us really valuable insights
Okay.
into what skills and strategies will be needed for them to work in the real world.
This has been super interesting.
It has, yeah.
But before we get too carried away with the future of AI doctors,
Right.
let's take a step back and think about what this means for medicine in general.
Okay.
What does it tell us about how we diagnose and treat,
Yeah,
both with and without AI?
good question.
We'll explore that and more when we come back for the final part of our deep dive. Welcome back. It's been really interesting exploring this world of AI doctors.
It has, yeah. And, we've learned that it's not just about having this supercomputer
Yeah.
that can make diagnoses. It's
Yeah.
about having AI systems that can actually think like a doctor,
Mhm.
observe, analyze,
Yeah.
gather the clues they need.
It's like they're these medical detectives.
Yeah, exactly.
Powered by algorithms and data,
Right.
but they also need to understand human communication.
And all those nuances of medical inquiry.
It's pretty exciting stuff.
It is.
So what does this all mean for the real world?
Well, one of the big things is that we have to train these AI doctor models, not just on medical knowledge,
Okay.
but also on how to communicate.
Right, because it's not just what they ask.
Exactly.
It's how they ask it.
Yeah, they need to be able to ask questions with empathy,
Yeah.
build rapport with the patient,
Mm-hmm.
adjust their approach based on who they're talking to.
Basically make it feel more human,
Exactly.
more like a partner in their healthcare.
And beyond just communication.
Okay.
This research helps us understand the diagnostic process better.
How so?
Well, by seeing how these AI models approach inquiry,
Yeah.
we can actually identify our own blind spots,
Oh, interesting.
develop new ways of gathering information,
Yeah.
and maybe even predict how likely we are to get an accurate diagnosis.
So it's like using AI as a mirror to look at ourselves.
Exactly, to challenge how we think and become better doctors.
That's a really cool idea.
And the researchers actually propose something even more interesting.
What's that?
Using this type of analysis to evaluate and train human doctors.
Oh.
Imagine AI giving doctors personalized feedback,
Oh, huh.
helping them refine their skills,
Mm-hmm.
avoid common biases,
Yeah.
and become more effective at what they do.
Like an AI coach.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
It's pretty powerful, right?
It is. But, I have to admit, I'm a little cautious about all this.
I understand.
We're talking about using AI in some pretty sensitive areas of healthcare.
It's true.
So how do we make sure it's used ethically?
Right. That's the big question.
That it helps patients and doctors.
Yeah.
Places them.
We need to figure out guidelines for data privacy,
Okay.
algorithmic transparency,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure humans are still in control.
We need that human touch, right?
Absolutely.
The empathy, the trust
It's about finding the right balance.
between technology and the human element.
Exactly. And to do that, everyone needs to work together.
Yeah.
Researchers, developers, doctors, policymakers, and most importantly, the patients.
We need to have these conversations.
Yes, open and honest ones.
About the benefits and the risks.
And create a future where technology aligns with our values.
And serves everyone.
That's the goal.
It's a future where AI helps doctors be even better,
Yeah.
where it helps us ask the right questions, and ultimately leads to better healthcare for everyone.
Well said.
That brings us to the end of our deep dives today.
It does.
We've covered a lot,
We have.
from the power of questions to the potential of AI to change everything.
It's been quite a journey.
It has, and we hope you'll keep exploring this topic.
What excites you about the future of AI in healthcare?
What are your concerns?
Join the conversation on our social media.
And let's keep talking about this.
Until next time,
Stay curious.
keep learning.
And thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
We'll see you next time.